Oh man, the ultra-liberal MSNBC is collapsing, gang. There's really no way around that. They've had an awful week. Scratch that. As we're going to find out, they, along with NBC, have had an awful couple of years. We're going to take a look at the latest disasters to befall the network and why it's all just par for the course for the dying mainstream Marxist media. You're going to absolutely love it. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here. Wonderful to be with you. As always, a super happy Wednesday, each and every one of you. If this is your first time here at this channel, I post 2 videos a day analyzing current events in light of super awesome conservative trends so you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. So if you haven't already done so, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. It'd be an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel, where we together every single day get to celebrate the inevitable collapse of left-wing globalism and the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age. Now, before we get into the ongoing collapse of MSNBC, make sure to download your free gift, which we put together just for you. We're calling it our fake news antidote. It's a compilation of about 20 sites I go to for my news each and every day, and you can download it completely free at the link down below in the pinned comment section. I think you're really going to enjoy it. And finally, let's give a huge shout out to the sponsors of this video, and that's our good friends over at mypatriotrates.com. How many of you out there are tired of paying simply too much for auto, health, or life insurance? Well, friends, stop. I mean, just stop. Cut your insurance rates substantially and save big with our good friends over at patriotrates.com. They are an American insurance company that you can trust. They're owned by veterans. Patriot Rates sources competitive pricing on auto, health, and life insurance, and will always have your back when it comes to finding the best quote to fit your needs. So make sure to click on the link below and visit patriotrates.com for a free quote on auto, health, and life insurance, and stop paying for overpriced insurance. Click on that link below today. All right, so here we go. Strap yourselves in. This is going to be fun. The ultra-liberal cable news network MSNBC is collapsing. There really is no other way of putting it. They've had a series of scandals that have shocked some of their major headliners, all the while NBC News faces increased scrutiny for refusing to enlist an independent investigation into its myriad of accusations of sexual harassment that allegedly plagues their culture. Now, the latest, the most recent fiasco is, of course, the colossal fall of Chris Matthews. Now, we actually just did a video predicting that he would be gone from MSNBC just hours before he got on air for his program that, by the way, nobody watches. More on that in a minute. He got on air and he gave his resignation, which took about 10 minutes, and then he just left. He left. He got on his program Hardball with Chris Matthews, which of course should be renamed Softball whenever he's talking to liberals and radical lefties, and perhaps more accurately Screwball whenever he was talking with conservatives. But he gets on his show like he's been doing for 20 plus years. I think it was last Monday night. He gets on his show that nobody's, of course, watching. And, well, he just gets up there and for the first 10 minutes, he resigns right there on air. He apologizes for his behavior, his lewd behavior. He says it's time to let younger, more activist left-wing radicals take his place as they continue to disguise themselves as journalists. And then he cut to a commercial break, and when the break was over, he was gone. 20 plus years on the show on MSNBC, and just like that, poof, he left. You could actually tell how shocked that guy Steve Kornacki was to have to, at the last minute, fill in for Matthews for the rest of the hour. I mean, he was obviously not expecting it. He said something like, well, that was shocking. The camera's on him. He's like, I really don't know what we're going to be doing now, but we got to finish the show somehow, don't we? Now, if you don't know, Chris Matthews was basically passively fired. Okay, this was obviously a forced resignation. In a word, Matthews got Me Too'd. He got publicly accused of sexist behavior by a former network contributor who claimed that Matthews sexually harassed her repeatedly back in the 1990s. But as Fox News is reporting, since that initial accusation just came out several days back, a source familiar with the situation, and in fairness, Fox is putting forward an unnamed source, right? But it seems to corroborate what others have written about with regard to Chris Matthews. This source said that Matthews' human resources file is chock full of complaints from women, and that in the end, NBC management simply couldn't ignore it anymore. But regardless, look, Matthews was a disgrace, okay? He was a left-wing Democrat who claimed to be an objective journalist, and he spewed out night after night after night left-wing talking points that cared nothing about the truth, cared nothing about understanding our culture or our world or the massive political paradigm shift that's taken place since the 2016 election. He hated that shift. He cared only about propping up left-wing candidates that were thoroughly within the Democratic establishment, unlike Bernie. Remember, he was a never Bernie guy. Bernie wasn't even a Democrat. There wasn't a single left-wing Democratic cause that Matthews didn't shill for. He was perpetually rude to conservative guests who were doing him the favor, by the way, since nobody watches his show. And I'm not exaggerating on that in the least, by the way. That's not hyperbole. Already media pundits are saying that the ratings of his show, Hardball, won't be hard to replace. Last month, Hardball with Chris Matthews was dead last in the 7 p.m. time slot among adults age 25 to 54, which is the key cable news demographic for advertisers. His show wasn't even the top 20 of most watched cable news shows. So he's a ratings disaster as well as a shill for all things Democrat. So good riddance on the guy. He will not be missed. But even before Chris Matthews' fall, you have the colossal collapse of MSNBC's Rachel Maddow. Now, we've done a number of videos on this, and what you'll find is that Maddow has been called out even by fellow journalists, like a recent piece in the liberal Washington Post, of all places, as reprehensibly irresponsible in her so-called reporting. And as a result, she's currently being sued for $10 million for defaming the conservative news outlet One America News, and you won't believe her defense. I never get tired of pointing this out. Never. You'll definitely want to check out the fuller video that I did on this. It's just a couple of months back, I think. I'll link it down below for you as well in the pinned comment section. But basically, Maddow's defense against this defamation suit is this: you can't take my words literally. I kid you not, all right? I quote, if I recall, I quote her lawyer. You cannot take what she says literally. That's her defense against the charge of defamation. And not only is she being sued for defamation, but her ratings have completely collapsed since this time last year. Back in March of last year, which was the end of Q1 and the height of the whole Robert Mueller investigation, right, with the report ready to come out, at that time, Maddow actually topped the Sean Hannity show on Fox with the coveted 25 to 54-year-old demographic, which is quite an achievement. Maddow was heralded. She was celebrated as the queen of the 9 o'clock hour. She was beating Hannity with the 25 to 54-year-old viewers that advertisers love so much. So she was making the money. She was really on top of the cable news media world, as it were. But then, after the Mueller report was released, this was a report that Maddow was promising her audience for 2 years would finally overturn the Trump presidency. Once Bumblin' Bob released his report that found absolutely no hint of collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign on the one hand, and absolutely no obstruction of justice on the other. After Bumblin' Bob's report was released, Maddow was staring at nothing less than the undoing of her own career. According to Fox News, Maddow lost nearly 500,000 viewers for her first episode following the release of that report. Let that hit you. 500,000 of her viewers turned her off after Bumblin' Bob ruined her nightly anti-Trump rant. Then, according to a report by TV Newser, she plummeted 13% in April compared to the same month in 2018. Then in May, she began losing her audience from precisely that 25 to 54-year-old demographic. She went from 550,000 viewers between the age of 25 to 54 back in March, then to just over 400,000 in May. And then when the July figures came out, she dropped into the 300,000s. And as a result, Rachel Maddow, the queen of the 9 o'clock hour, fell from first place at the 9 o'clock hour all the way down to 5th. She trailed all 4 of Fox News' evening shows in terms of total viewers. So there's little question here that Rachel Maddow and her zeal for left-wing activism experienced nothing less than a humiliating fall. But folks, it gets even worse, if you can believe that. NBC as a whole, the entire corporation, has been subject of intense scrutiny of late, given the enormous number of sexual harassment complaints coming out of the corporation. NBC has had to fire their senior vice president amid sexual harassment allegations. Of course, Matt Lauer, right, host of the Today Show, he got canned for some pretty horrific allegations against him that even involved the accusation of rape. And then, just a few months back, you had the investigative reporter Ronan Farrow, who came out with a book detailing how NBC News deliberately attempted to cover up his story about the sexual assault allegations surrounding Harvey Weinstein. Now, apparently Weinstein had pressured NBC executives to drop the story. And according to Farrow, he used NBC's Matt Lauer's alleged sexual misconduct, which Weinstein knew about, as leverage to get the story killed. Since both Lauer and Weinstein have since been exposed, there have been calls for NBC to allow for an outside investigation into the extent of sexual assaults and appropriateness within the company, especially in terms of what they knew about Weinstein and when they knew about it. And thus far, the network has said no. They've completely refused any outside investigation. And on top of this culture of corruption, this kind of moral corruption within NBC, then you have the overall ratings fall. NBC saw a dramatic 10% decline in overall ratings between 2018 and 2019. In fact, NBC has experienced viewership decline over the last 5 straight years. So there's a little question here that NBC and its cable counterpart MSNBC are collapsing, which in many respects is just a symbol of what's happening to the mainstream media as a whole. Now, before you go, I just uploaded a great video, actually a really tragic video, on a new memoir that reveals just how horribly left-wing radicals have exploited and frankly abused Greta Thunberg. I think you'll be outraged, and I explain precisely why leftists are so prone to human manipulation. So make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.